Their families separated. Is another child torn from the arms of her mother who traveled 2,000 miles, risking her very life to bring her here to this country because there was no other place that she could go. Though in this country today, instead of finding that safety and that salvation from a country of asylum seekers and refugees and immigrants, she finds her worst nightmare. Deported back to the very country from which she fled. That child tonight, somewhere, God only knows where, not knowing when or if she will see her mother again. Though that were the decision of just one man, Donald J. Trump, in a democracy. In a democracy where the people are the government and the government is the people, every day that this persists, it is on every single one of us. And so I think it's our opportunity, our choice, our chance to stand up and say, never again will we allow this to happen. We will reunite every child since separated, bringing their families here if necessary, if there is no other place for that child to find safety. And on this issue that we know so well, we will rewrite this country's immigration laws in our own image. We will reflect who we are, our families, our communities, our experiences, what we know to be true, and what we know to be good, without apology, nothing to be defensive for. No walls need to be built here in this country. We can ensure that our laws reflect our values, like making sure that every single dreamer, more than 1 million strong in this country, never fear deportation because we make them citizens here in their home country, where they are just as American as anybody else. Let's now reflect that in the laws that we pass. If the challenge is criminal justice reform, in a country that imprisons more of its own than any other, a prison population disproportionately comprised of people of color, so many there serving time for possession of a substance that has been decriminalized or medicinalized or legalized in most states in the country. Imagine a veteran coming back from Afghanistan tomorrow who does not want to be prescribed an opioid to which she may become addicted in a country that lost 70,000 of our fellow Americans to drug overdose deaths just last year, wants to be prescribed medicinal cannabis. That doctor wants to prescribe it to her, but in this state today, both of them would be outlaws. Who is going to be the last person, and chances are, given who is arrested and who is doing time, who's going to be the last person of color to be locked up behind bars for possessing something that some in other states are getting perfectly rich legally selling to our fellow Americans? Who's going to be the last person who, after they are released, has to check a box on an employment application form saying that they have that conviction, making it less likely that they get hired? Who's going to be the last person now denied a Pell Grant, the opportunity to better themselves through higher education so that they can do better for themselves, their family, their community, their country? I want to make sure that not only do we end a war on drugs that has become a war on people, some people more than others. I don't only want to end the prohibition on marijuana, but I want to make sure that we expunge the arrest records of every single person arrested for possession of a substance that is legal in so much of the rest of the country today. Whether it is any of these challenges or meeting the existential threat that this generation and every generation that follows them faces right now, we know because the scientists, we will still listen to the scientists, and God bless people who are willing to march for science 300 years after the Enlightenment. But we must, those scientists tell us, if this planet warms another 1.5 degrees Celsius, that's all that stands between us and disaster, that all that stands between us and not just storms in southeast Texas that'll make Harvey and its 58 inches of rain, which was the landfall record, look like a drop in the bucket. Not only will they further prolong the droughts that we feel in North Texas, in the Panhandle, and in the West, where we grow the fiber and the food that clothes and feeds not just the United States, but so much of the rest of the world. Human beings in many of these communities will no longer be able to live. but we still have time. That's the good news. We can still set the bar a little bit higher. It may not be politically convenient. It may not poll well. It may not be good for our next election. But if we focus not on those things, but the next generation, I'm confident that the ingenuity and the innovation, the can-do spirit of the people of Texas can match and overcome that bar. We can be far more responsible. We can seize the lead on renewable energy, where we are #1 in the country in the generation of wind power today, soon to be #1 in solar. In this state, where while it is not okay, it is perfectly legal to fire you for your sexual orientation. In this state, where you can be denied the ability to adopt one of the 30,000 children out of the foster care system because you are too gay under the guise of religious liberty. In a state that sought to scare parents and people about transgender people, their fellow human beings, based on a meaningless difference for political gain. This could be the same state that stands up together to insist on the full civil rights of every single American, regardless of their orientation or any difference. I'm confident that lastly, I heard a call out earlier for school teachers and public educators. Those in the classroom, the therapists, the librarians, the counselors, the cafeteria workers, the school bus drivers, the custodians who are the last ones left after everyone has gone home, all of them fundamental to the success of those kids in those classrooms, where 90% of children in America are still educated in a public school classroom. Check that out. In this really divided, highly polarized country, that may be the last place that we come together in common without distinction for your race or any other difference, your income or any other difference, who you pray to, whether you pray at all, or any other difference. It's a common conception of being American, and yet those school teachers and public school educators in the state of Texas, nearly half of them are working a second or a third job just to make ends meet.
Yeah.
Those school teachers who out of their own pocket don't just pay for the classroom decorations, don't just pay for the school supplies, so often pay for that hot meal for that child who's on free and reduced breakfast and lunch but does not have a dinner to go home to. They are there for that child who's shown up in the same pair of clothes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That school teacher by Thursday out of her own pocket has bought a new set of clothes so that child can hold his or her head up a little bit higher, be treated with the dignity they deserve as a human being. I want to make sure that those educators who have been there for us, that we are there for them, and that we insist on a living wage so that they work only one job, teaching to that child and not to a test. We're going to do all of these things. We're going to